Evening, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us here this evening. We're really grateful to spend some time with you on a Thursday evening. And the time that we want to spend tonight is actually our 226th episode of Warp and Woof Radio. And we're really happy to have it invited back here this evening. Ivanildo Trindade from the Amazon River, of all places, but who is now member of the United States, and we're really happy that he's a citizen here and living in the United States, a pastor in the state of Ohio. Ivanildo, thanks so much for joining us here tonight. We're having a little bit of technical difficulty with some problems from Ohio. I think the internet there might not be so great. Let me just mention here as we get underway and get started that I just received my book, I Am Not a Bad Hombre, from Ivanildo today in the mail. It's really great to have a copy of this. I was pleased to have been asked to write the forward for it. So I need to be honest about those things too, and say not only is Ivanildo a great author, and you should run out and buy this book, but a good friend as well. So Ivanildo, tell us about your day today. I think that might be a great way to start.
I think it's here, but let's see what we can do. I think God is in charge even of the internet. Maybe he will fix that for us.
There you go.
I hope so. Satan tries to mess things up, but God is bigger than the waves, and he certainly is bigger than Satan. So my day was actually a very eventful day. I went to Columbus, Ohio. It's a one-hour trip from my house because I had to do my follow-up post-surgery visit with my neurosurgeon after my third brain surgery.
Wow.
And I got great news. He gave me a clean bill of health.
Oh, fantastic.
He did a CT scan of my head. He looked inside and told me there is nothing there.
Excellent.
I was happy to hear that.
Well, I hope there was a couple things in there.
So I have been in this battle since January 1st, when I went into an emergency room to have surgery to remove an inordinate amount of blood that was in my brain. And Dr. Yusaman, the neurosurgeon, performed a craniotomy. And since then, I've had 2 more surgeries because of other complications. But today, he told me everything looks great, no sign of infection. The fluids inside my head, he says, are not getting any worse. It's just normal stuff. And he says, back to work, back to normal activities, and back to promoting my book. So that's what I'm doing right now.
There you go.
What a privilege. I feel, my birthday was 2 days ago. And since I had this 9-month battle with brain surgery, I was born with a malformation inside my brain that was allowing blood to be deposited freely, the wrong kind of blood, not the oxygen-rich kind of blood, but just unfiltered blood. And I've had this my whole life. I did not know until I had this horrible headache that put me in the hospital, and that saved my life. Wow. And I completed this project, I Am Not a Bad Hombre, in the midst of all of this craziness, including the pandemic. And I figured I've had a procedure, a medical procedure of one sort or another since January 1st until now. Every 17 days, I've had a procedure.
Oh, my.
But praise God, I believe today is Independence Day for me.
Well, that's fantastic. Now you should run out and watch the Independence Day movie.
There you go. I might just do that. But I'm excited. My book just released a few days ago.
Yes.
And as you already mentioned, you had a part in it. We have a moment that we shared together.
Yes.
In Lancaster, And I actually believe that that was a turning point in my life. And you gave me so much confidence,
Wow.
and I appreciate that. And for me, it is, you know, all hands on deck pursuing that goal right now.
That's fantastic. Just so that everybody knows, and I think maybe we talked about this the last time you were on the program, but um, I emphasized to you that particular day that you should be on this side of the lectern. That is, you should be teaching this class, and I really hope that you will be someday. That's why I hope there's still something inside your head.
Yes.
So I'm really pleased to hear all of this good news. That's just fantastic. Why don't you tell us a little bit? I mean, this is the reason why you're here this evening. We want to emphasize this. Tell us about this project, why it was so important to you. Kind of give us an overview and then maybe a purpose statement, perhaps.
Sure. First of all, let me just say this is a project that I've been working on for many years. I have always wanted to write my story of being an immigrant from the northern part of Brazil, was born in the Amazon, and being transported from the tropics to Midwest United States.
Mm.
And I'm telling you, it was quite a cultural shock.
Mm.
The day that we arrived in South Bend, Indiana, January 18th, 1982, in the
Wow.
midst of a blizzard.
Oh.
We came from a 95-degree weather, 100% humidity, landed in South Bend, Indiana, after being detained in Miami because the airport was closed in South Bend. And we suddenly found ourselves in this little plane, and we looked down, and all we saw was this vast amount of whiteness. And for a moment, both my wife and I thought that maybe the plane was upside down. But that was actually a metaphor about what was going to happen to our lives, because suddenly our world was upside down. Everything we knew about how to conduct ourselves, everything that was normal to us, all of a sudden was no longer normal.
Mm.
And if we were going to survive in this country, we would have to learn the new normal. And we did. My wife didn't even see, she only said good morning and good afternoon in English. Those were the only two words, two expressions that she knew, which, automatically put her out of going out in the evening because she just couldn't greet people in the evening. But after a few years, she actually not only mastered the English language, but also she was able to go to school and become a preschool teacher.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and I got my master's in theology. So I've always wanted to tell that story, and I would start it and put it off, started and put it off, started and put it off. But in 2016, because of the intensity of the presidential elections, I said, I got to finish this book now, because I felt all of a sudden that people like myself, brown skinned, accented slightly or heavily, okay, with a different cultural background, all of a sudden we felt insecure. I have never felt this climate of being afraid of showing your ethnicity, so to speak, after 30 years in America, as I did in 2016. So I said, I got to write this book. And I decided to write it because I believe that my story is a story of triumph in two ways. In two ways. First, for other immigrants like myself who are afraid, who believe that they don't have much to offer, okay, who perhaps now are looking around when they go out to see if they're safe. I wanted to offer my story as an example of someone who actually found a home in this great nation and does believe that he has something important to contribute to the fabric of this society. And the second part of that is that people who, even if only temporarily, believe the narrative that, hey, bad news, these foreigners are coming, I wanted them to have a chance to take another look at the fact that there is so much good that we can give and take as we embrace and befriend people from other countries who have found a home here in this country. Now, it is not a religious book, okay? Although it will be obvious that I am a man of faith and that I love God. But my purpose was to tell my story and give the context to my readers about how we got to this point and how we understand historically racism, discrimination. I go back to the issue of slavery and how deeply it still affects us today, slavery, and then segregation, and those dark days of if you married somebody from another race, being a white person, for example, you were breaking the law. It hasn't been that long since those laws still existed.
Right.
So I wanted to talk about that. And in the context, I also I have several chapters that are cultural tidbits for people who want to understand how to interact with people from other cultures.
Mm.
I talk about the mistakes that we make. I tell some funny stories about some of the mistakes that I made. So I encourage Americans not to fear, but to reach out, to trade stories, to step into each other's stories, and thus, I believe, enrich each other's stories.
Indeed.
That's what I do in this book.
It is a bridge process. That's what our responsibility is to make sure that other people not only feel welcome, which is essential, but the necessity of helping people across the bridge into the culture.
Yes. And it is, I have, of course, in my book, I have good examples and not so good examples.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I'll just give you one example. This happens to be one that is not so good.
Okay.
It's a story that happened at Tampa International Airport. And I'm trying to address this issue that so many people feel so passionate about the whole idea of if you are in America, you have to speak English, right? And let me just tell you this. As a family, we had 3 little kids when we came to America. We chose the approach of total immersion in the language right away. And we did it on purpose because we figured that if our kids were going to live in this culture, they would have to master the language. If you can't master the language, you cannot master the culture.
Right.
We took that approach. Now, not every family can do that. Not every family can afford tutors. For example, we had tutors to teach our girls. And not only that, but we didn't have elderly parents living with us that would require that we speak Portuguese all the time at home so that you don't lose the connection with the grandparents.
Sure.
And we were not living in an isolated like enclave where you could speak Portuguese in our case and get by. So most of the people that I know who are foreigners who haven't learned English, it's not because they purposefully don't want to learn English. Most of them, they just, the circumstances were not right for them to learn. So
Sure.
a lot of people miss that point. So the story is at Tampa International Airport, I ventured into one of those little convenience stores inside the terminal, and I'm reading from my book. The young girl who helped me, I surmise, was from Ethiopia, which in my opinion has some of the most beautiful people in the world. I asked her about her country of origin while I was paying. Sure enough, she confirmed she was from Ethiopia and she spoke Amharic. As we were talking, a man who looked to be in his 60s came into the store and began to look around. Momentarily, another young lady who was from the store next door came over to chat briefly in Amharic with the gal that I had just met. I learned later that they were making lunch plans. No sooner had they started talking, the man started yelling as loud as he could while gesticulating and shaking his whole body. This is America. You must speak English here. Then he stormed out of the store, huffing and puffing, looking for his next victim, and leaving the two young ladies doing some shaking of their own.
Mm.
I try to confront them. Excuse me. I try to comfort them because it appeared that they had never experienced anything just like that before in their brief time in America.
Mm.
As I sat on my seat that day on the plane, hovering above 35,000 feet on my way back to Los Angeles, the question that kept coming back to me was, where does this sort of thing come from? And how can we make sure that it's not contagious? Well, the answer is you. If you want a good immigrant experience with your friends, try to make them feel like they're valuable human beings and show genuine interest in getting to know them for who they are. That's one of the stories.
That's a fantastic story. Fantastic in the sense that it certainly makes your point, not fantastic in the sense that it was a good story. But certainly, you provided some salve, some comfort for these young women. And Ethiopia is one of those great nations that is a Christian nation, has some great Christian roots.
And the gospel was there before it was in Europe.
Right. Yes. And what a wonder that is. And the opportunity, of course, for you to meet them and to have that experience, obviously now in the book, such a sad thing, but at the same time, now you can utilize this as a story for instruction.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And that's what I mean about, I was talking to you earlier before we started the interview, that life is about simple things, sharing little tidbits about our respective stories.
Yes.
And every little experience that we have, we are so fortunate if we can turn into not only a learning moment, but also a teaching moment.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even a casual story like that it was not so casual for them, although it was something that they had never experienced before.
Mm-hmm.
I shared that story, and there's one that is not in the book because, like I said, it's not, the book is not for Christians necessarily, but I share one for Christians that is similar to that. Mm-hmm. I was at a conference with pastors once in San Diego, and it was a big hotel. I went into the gift shop, and I just met, as I went in, a young man from Taiwan. His name was William. I still remember his Americanized name, William. So I'm talking with William, and a pastor friend of mine whom I knew and who was also there in that conference, he came inside the little gift shop, and I told him, "Hey, Will, I want you to meet my new friend here, William from Taiwan." And my friend, Pastor Will, he says, "Oh, great." And he asks me, "Does he know the Lord?" And my new friend from Taiwan looked at me completely like confused, not understanding what my friend had just said. And he looks at me and says, "What does he mean? The Lord of the Rings?" You thought that maybe he meant to say, has he watched the Lord of the Rings?
Oh, dear.
So he's using Christian jargon.
Yes.
That we use all the time.
Yes.
In fact, it doesn't even have to be a foreign person. We can, it can be somebody that is not a church person.
Right. Well, you have similar experiences that I do. I'm teaching on the public university campus. As I do now, we have these opportunities to literally to be the bridge, to be the transition between groups. Just wanted you to see that your friend from Brazil is watching. You'll notice there on the screen, Roberto is here with us.
Oh my goodness,
Yes,
Roberto from Brazil.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, he's a newlywed, and I just want to say all the best wishes to you, Roberto, and to your wife, Lyra. Blessings on
Lovely.
you. Oh, this is pretty exciting.
It is.
This
It
guy,
is.
Roberto, he has like 5,000 people that follow him on Facebook. So if he puts
Wow.
that on his page on Facebook, lots and lots of people are going to watch it. He's an English professor.
That's fantastic. Well, this is a really good discussion here tonight. We've got about 10 minutes left, and I know that you have another story that you want to share with us from the book. And, I honestly feel kind of like this is one of those things like, we go to a bookstore and we hear the author reading some of their books.
Mhm.
So I want to give you more time to do that.
Okay, I'll give you a couple more because I actually marked them here. I went to seminary in Indiana, like I said, in the little town of Winona Lake, Indiana. During the time that I was there, this pastor from Southern California befriended me, and he put it in his head that he would like for me to move to his town in Bellflower, California, to become an associate pastor in his church.
Hmm.
So he flew me over there because he was convinced that I was just what the doctors had ordered, so to speak. I was not so sure, to be honest with you. But since he was paying for the airplane ticket, I'm like, I'm in, man. I'm going to go check it out. I mean, it's a free trip to Los Angeles. I had never been to Los Angeles before. So this pastor, first day, he gave me a grand tour of all these different places in Southern California, all the way to actually Disneyland. Showed me the whole lay of the land. So now I read from the book. After the first day, we were both exhausted. But as we started driving back to his house, he remembered that his wife had asked him to pick up a few things from the grocery store. For some reason, the store was crowded. He managed to get through his list and got in line to pay. I was just standing by, observing, talking, mostly hearing him say how my wife and I would do so well in that area, how his people would receive us with open arms, etc., etc. I was starting to believe him when something curbed my enthusiasm. An Asian lady, believed she was Japanese, was standing in line behind my pastor friend. He was a rather large man who liked to spend time in his indoor pool every day to try to cool off. He drove a cool car, a spacious car that had already had a built-in GPS system installed in the early 90s.
Oh, my.
It was apparent that my friend loved his personal space and he needed lots of it. Soon, the Asian lady began to get too close to him. Poor lady. She might have been too anxious to get home, and the line was moving slowly. As she got closer, my friend got a little rattled. Had the line not been too long, things would probably have been okay. But the wait caused the lady to inch closer and closer to my friend's space. Soon, she was practically breathing on his neck. Not knowing what to do, my friend did a half turn and told the lady in plain English, "Ma'am, in our country, we don't get that close to people."
Oh, my word.
I called my wife that night and said, "No go."
Oh, my word. That's something. Oh,
Yeah,
dear.
true story.
Oh,
I have to say though, my wife and I, we share our stories of. I have a chapter in my book in which I talk about culture being a mental roadmap.
hmm.
When you are from the culture of your birth, you don't need somebody to explain to you how to behave. It's a roadmap. It's a mental roadmap. It's
Mhm.
already there. But when you transport yourself from your culture to another culture, then you need a map. The problem is,
Yeah.
where is such map? Nobody has made it available for you. So that's why we need cultural brokers, people who will be a bridge, like you said, whether it's a bridge to the unsaved world, the secular world, the whatever, or a bridge to people who are from other cultures. We could have benefited a lot from having a cultural broker early on. I
I
remember.
wish
Go ahead.
I wish that I had met you earlier.
Oh, wow. Yes, yes. So my wife and I, literally, we go to the little town of Winona Lake, Indiana. I tell this story in my book, but I'm not going to read it. I'll just briefly say this. We were dying to go to McDonald's, right? We'd never been to McDonald's before. So the day before I went with my wife, I went and actually checked out the place. So I kind of like observed and I saw that what people were doing. But apparently I didn't do a good job, because the next day when I go back, I take my wife, we go in, sit down, and wait to be served. Yeah, literally. I'm like, people are getting their food, and we're just sitting here. So finally, I figured out that unless we got up and actually ordered, we probably would have starved to death, or be asked to leave the store. So we have our share of things, and that we did, because we did not know the roadmap.
Mm.
Our mental roadmap. For example, I had a friend that I befriended while I was in seminary, and he was a runner. I was a runner. We would run a couple of times a week together. So I thought he was my friend, right? And we called each other friends. But I learned later that what I thought of friend was not what he thought of friend. Like for a Brazilian, in the Brazilian culture, a friend is someone who is not related to you by blood, but feels like a brother anyway, whether it's biological or not. You, at the drop of a hat, you can, if your friend needs you, you will drop everything you're doing and you will go help your friend.
Yeah.
In his mind, friend was a guy that an acquaintance. Okay. So one day we lived in a very old house and I had a leakage. It was really bad. I didn't know what to do. Not knowing what to do, I called my friend, 9:30 in the evening. First mistake.
Boy.
And then I said, hey, John, I'm having a problem here. And he said, without even, hearing what the problem was, is, I'm sorry, I cannot talk to you right now. I was so offended.
Wow.
I was offended. Actually, he did tell me to call later, believe it or not. I never called because I thought he was being rude.
Yeah.
Well, about a year later, I finally realized what was going on. And he was not being rude, and I was not being unreasonable. He was being American, I was being Brazilian.
Mm.
Because in my culture, if a friend calls, you drop everything you're doing and you go help that friend. In his culture, if a friend calls and has a real need, but you are right now so preoccupied with other things that you cannot dedicate time to your friend,
Mm-hmm.
you ask the friend to call later.
Yes.
So we were not being rude or unreasonable. We were just being citizens of our own culture.
Yes.
But
I love
again, it takes a broker to explain those things.
Right, and I love your the cultural roadmap metaphor is really a powerful one. We're just about out of time, and I wanted to give everybody another opportunity just to see this book, which is now out. I Am Not a Bad Hombre, by Ivanildo. And this is a really important book, I think, for all people to read. Again, as you've suggested, Pastor, this is not necessarily a Christian book in that sense of things. It's much more of a cultural connection to this nation.
Yes. Well, it is available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, though it's not going to be released there until December 23rd.
Okay.
But
All
it
right.
will be available there. You can order now, but it will be available December 23rd, both in Kindle or ebook as well as the print version.
Very
But
good.
you can get the book right now by going to bookbaby.com.
Bookbaby.com. There you go. I love that term.
Bookbaby.com, baby. The reason it's called Book Baby, it's a company that specializes in helping first-time authors.
That's great.
And these folks do a great job. It's not a commercial for them, but they do an outstanding job. It was actually recommended to me by a fellow PhD student from Lancaster Bible College and Capital Graduate School. And
nice.
I was very happy with what they did. But it's available on bookbaby.com.
Excellent.
And all we have to do is search "I'm Not a Bad Hombre" or my name, which is a rather unpronounceable, complicated name.
Anybody out there listening, I'll be happy to help. Ivanildo Trindade is Ivanildo's name. Thank you so much, Ivanildo, for being here tonight. It was wonderful, again, to just be with you virtually, if nothing else. But of course, to see your book, to have it in my hands now, I really appreciate it. Thank you for signing the book for me. I'm grateful.
Thank you. Very much.
Grateful again for the opportunity to be with you, and grateful that you're continuing on with the PhD now post brain trauma. So we're glad about that too.
Pressure is on. There's lots more stories in this book, and I guarantee you're going to laugh. You're going to cry. Sometimes you're going to get mad.
Yep.
But in the end, if you stick with the book, like you said in the preface, Dr. Eckel, chapter 16 and 17, I tell you what, that's where it all makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I encourage you to stick with the book, because it is the story of my being set free from my own problems that I had. And I learned that through the art of forgiveness. And today I'm a free man because of that. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here. And
absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks, everybody, for joining us here tonight. We'll be putting up this the download, not only for the audio, but also the visual. This will be available to us right after this program is over. Thanks again, Ivanildo, for this evening. Grateful to see you again.
Thank you so much. My privilege, my brother, and my friend.
And my friend. And I will drop everything to come to you if you need it.
Love that. I love that.
All right, everybody.
So the word we're going to use then is going to be amigo, not friend.
Amigo.
You got it.
There you go. Very good. Thanks, everybody. Episode 226 in the books. And we'll see you again next time.